All right, so it's broker time, and what I want to do this time around, we'll just go through some questions I've been getting. Can a buyer and seller have two agency agreements simultaneously? What's your first take on that?
You don't want me to answer that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Outside of that one, yeah.
You mean two represent a buyer or a seller having two representation agreements at the same time?
Yeah, a buyer's got two agents working for him, a seller's got more than one agent working for him. Can they do that?
Well, yeah, they can do that.
Yeah,
If you got problems because you got two contracts with just
right.
like you can execute two contracts to sell your property, but there's problems with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cleaner when they've got one thing going on, but let's take a look at this, how this could actually happen. So this is I want to start with the sellers first. This one here is the exclusive agency, excuse me, exclusive right to sell listing agreement. And this is the one that we use. We don't use exclusive agency, but there's a different way of listing property that's called exclusive agency. But let me show you the difference. This one line that I have highlighted here in paragraph 6, anyone produces a buyer ready, willing, and able to buy the property. This line right here is the only difference between exclusive right to sell and exclusive agency. So now let's go to exclusive agency. So on the listing side, you got the same paragraph. And what it says is if during the term of agreement, the broker or any other broker produces a buyer ready, willing, and able to buy property, then they'll pay. So the exclusive right means the broker that lists the property has a sign in the yard, or the seller brings someone in, I'm still going to get paid. Exclusive agency says Anthony at KW United or any other broker that he's marketing or any other agents or anything from an open house produces a buyer willing and able, then I'll pay Anthony the compensation because his broker activities do it. If I bring in my own buyer, then I'm going to cut Anthony out. Now, how could they have this with more than one agency? If they struck out or any other broker, and it read during the term of agreement, broker, and you have to hop over here, produces a buyer ready, willing, and able, then they could have that agreement with more than one brokerage. So, yeah, they could. It's rare, but they could. I have run into the exclusive agency, this one. I'm in 30 years. I've only seen this like two or three times in my career. And usually I push back to the agency, are you sure you've got the right form? And they will come back and say, yes, the seller wants to be able to market it himself or herself. And if they find someone, then they don't want me to do anything. So they will have um, a compensation here. And then they have the additional listing broker for unrepresented buyer, and they have the listing broker service fee if there's a buyer broker that comes into play as well. But on the listing side, this is how you could have more than one representation agreement. On the buyer side, the exclusive right to represent buyer agreement in paragraph 3 says, what's the purpose of this? The purpose of it is to buy a residential property, but make sure that you have that lined up with in Virginia. I mean, it says in Virginia here, but you could be at a point where you get a bone of contention with the buyer because they run out of property types here. The buyer agrees to the terms of this paragraph when entering into any contract for any type of real property, including but not limited to new home construction, off-market listings, properties for sale by owners, and the like. Real property means anything with or without a house on it. So this paragraph should cover you in case of a lot that you're purchasing as well. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I have one, Anthony.
Go ahead.
Okay, so if an agent has a buyer that wants to buy in DC or Maryland, and that agent is not licensed in there, they can have two different agreements, right?
Yes.
Okay.
This is, yeah, and that's a really good point. And we have that happen. Um, if an agent's not licensed in Maryland or DC, they'll refer it to one of our other agents. But when people are licensed in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, I've seen this come over, and then I have the other two buyer broker agreements as well lined up right behind it, and they're signing all three at the same time. Now, I want to point this out as well. Let's say the buyer is like, hey, look, I'm fine with you in Northern Virginia, but we might do something out in the mountains, and I really want to go with an agent that lives in the mountains. So they may put in here buyers retaining broker to acquire the following type of property in Virginia in the counties of. So they could limit your representation by geographic area, either here in paragraph 3 or all the way down in paragraph 19, other provisions. So they could say, Anthony's going to show me property in Arlington, Alexandria, Falls Church City, Fairfax, Fairfax City, Prince William, and Loudoun County. And that's it. That's my area of place. But then they would need to have the same type of thing going on with the other buyer agent saying, Bob Banner is going to represent me in all counties of Virginia except Boom, which is represented by another agreement from another brokerage. So I would just, if that's what they want to do, and I cannot convince them to let me take them out to Winchester, I would say, well, this is the language I'm going to have, and I'm going to encourage you to use this same type of language with your other agents so there's no confusion later on. By the way, this paragraph 19, where I've seen it used the most here, is a limiting a representation for an agent to not be the representative if it's a family deal. Like other provisions may be, this is good for 123 Lois Lane, Springfield, Virginia only. So you got a buyer broker agreement for the one house they want you to look at. It could be 123 Lois Lane, Springfield, Virginia is not included in this agreement because maybe it is a family deal and they don't want you, they've already got that lined up, so they don't want you to participate in that if they've got that already in the works. Okay. So yeah, you could have more than one agreement. It's just that the purchaser needs to understand they just don't get an agreement here, an agreement there, and they go out. They say that language is important. You've got to put the limiter language in paragraph 3. But if they're going out to like Charlottesville or Richmond, they need to make this is not going to be the same documents here. They're going to have different documents and they'll need to make sure that they've cleaned that up. Okay? Any questions on that? Good deal. Let's go to the next one. Are HOA violations negotiable? Do they require an addendum? Who wants to tackle that one? Nobody wants to tackle this one.
I would imagine that they are because if it's something that the seller doesn't want to fix or can't fix, or can't we in lieu of actually fixing it, can they give them a credit?
Mm-hmm. Definitely, they can do that. I would say you can do that, but if you look at paragraph 19 of the title, okay,
Mhm.
it already has the seller on the dime
Right.
for HOA violations. So there's two things here. If you, as the buyer agent, and you got this listing agent, they say, look, we just can't fix that patio in the back. it's got this huge crack, and the HOA says the crack we don't have the resources or the time to do it. Y'all could have an addendum explaining that. Um, the challenge I run into is where a buyer agent wants to have another addendum on top of the home inspection addendum listing that they want to get everything done by the seller on the HOA document that's of a violation. That is not required. They've already agreed to it here in paragraph 19. Now, I say that the reason that comes up is because the buyers are nervous and think, well, I've got this agreement that they signed off on these 8 items for the HOA, for the home inspection, but I don't have the same kind of handcuff for these HOA documents. You do have it. It's right here. And the list is whatever you got from the HOA inspection. That's the list of items. Um, where another piece comes up that might be negotiable is like, if the seller does not complete these by walkthrough, X amount of dollars will be held in escrow until they're completed within 10 days. And if not completed within 10 days, the money will be released to the buyer. So that's a good way to do it. We just did that language with a transaction this week where the buyer was like, I don't have the confidence this seller's going to get it done. And that's why they wanted this extra language. But it was dealing completely with, we're going to put something in escrow if you don't have this done at walkthrough. So that would be something, but I would not put, and that's another thing is remember, HOA problems, they're not home, they may come up in the home inspection, but if you've gotten the HOA documents ahead of time, be sure you're removing things out of your HOA removal from the HOA, from the inspection. Home inspection versus HOA removal. Don't let them be there in the home inspection removal addendum, because then you're making them negotiable, and they've already negotiated that. So where some folks will do a walkthrough when there was no home inspection, and they say these items aren't done. Well, it was as is. No, you said 2 things on that. It is as is, but these are HOA violations. Even though I didn't have a home inspection, you said you'd fix these. And yes, it's as is, but it's as is when I wrote the contract. When I wrote the contract, the stove worked, and now the stove's not working. So you owe me a stove or some credit. So remember that when you're talking about home inspections and HOA violations. I think I said that. All right. So when can a tenant cancel a lease without penalty? I got a whole bunch of slides on this one. What would be one you think they could do immediately?
Let's say if it's a military transfer.
It's what again?
Military transfer?
Yep, military transfer. Anything else?
Not anything else.
Yeah. All right. We got several here. Uninhabitable dwelling unit at move-in. At move-in. So we have a form here in the which one's this one? Yeah, this is the lease. But we have a move-in. This is the Virginia Statement of Tenant Rights and Responsibilities. Whether they use an agent or not, they're supposed to have this signed. The uninhabitable unit at move-in. And at move-in means I've gone in 7 days, up to 7 days before and 7 days after. If the owner does not, the tenant does not come in and say, here's my list of things, they have to make sure that they do it within the time frame necessary. But here's what it says. If there's a fire hazard, a serious threat to life, to the tenant, rodents, lack of heat or cold, water, electricity, the tenant may terminate the rental agreement. Now, they can't just walk in and say, I'm out of here, because the code talks about uninhabitable dwelling and lays it out what it means. If at the beginning of the tenancy, there's a condition that constitutes these things we just talked about, the tenant shall be entitled to terminate and get a full refund so long as the tenant provides the landlord with a written notice of intent to terminate the rental agreement within 7 days of the date on which possession of the dwelling was to have transferred. So this could be 7 days before the first or 7 days after the first. Okay, day number 7. Unless the landlord asserts that the tenant's termination is unjustified. So it's not a just for sure thing. So keep that in mind when your tenants start talking about this. Now, this is one of those times in the transaction where technically we're not in there anymore. The lease is signed, the checks have passed hands, and we technically are not there. But then within day 1 or 2 or 3, this happens. We are going to get the phone call. This just happened, I think, last week with one of our tenants. And I have found this is not unusual for this situation. Is we had a tenant was already in it, and the new tenant was coming in, and there was storage and things in the garage, and they inspected it, looked fine. When they came back to the empty house, there's a wall full of mold-looking substance. Um, that's when the tenant can say, "I'm out of here if you can't get this fixed." Now, the landlord would assert that it's unjustified. They could assert that, but if they can't, they have to give the refund of all deposits and tenants terminate and everything back to the tenant, and they're out of the lease. So that's one place where that can happen, is in the uninhabitable dwelling unit. Okay. Paragraph 8, fire or casualty damage. If they can't fix it, they can get out also. Um, Landlord's move in is in paragraph 11, what we just talked about. Particularly in the lease, it talks about mold in paragraph 11. And then paragraph 24 is if the landlord is just not able to deliver the property. Forget that it's not in good condition, but you're just not able to get it ready. Inability to deliver possession to the tenant. The landlord will not be liable to tenant for any damages other than rebate. If landlord cannot deliver premises or provide tenant with an alternative residential dwelling unit acceptable to tenant within 15 days. So that's the thing again, right? It's not like, here's my notice, I'm out of here, give me my checks back. They have to give the landlord some time to make it work, which I get it. And here's where they'll try to drag us in as tenant, as agents. Well, we're willing to give him or her time to get this fixed, and they said they can have it done in 15 days. I don't want to pay for the 15 days. It doesn't give them the access to do that. The landlord's not liable to tenant for any damages other than to rebate any rent by tenant for such point. Okay, so they do get some money back, but they got to ask for it. But it's no other damage. Well, you can't give it to me. Now I got to go get a hotel room and I got to have my stuff in the truck for 2 weeks. It's not giving them anything on this lease. And so this is where they get into a battle on, I don't want to pay this extra money. Now they've already paid the money. And what I would see a landlord saying is like, hey, next month, just don't pay me 2 weeks worth, just pay half rent. Well, the problem for the tenant is that I've already out of all my money, and now I got to go to a hotel after I just gave you $6,000. That's a tough part there. So they may want money back right now, and then the landlord is like, yeah, but now I got to go fix this problem that either I did or didn't know was there. So these are great paragraphs. Here's the thing: we all know that when they start playing out, not everybody plays nice. Tenants don't want to give the landlord the time to do it. The landlord wants them to just move in. I'll take care of it later. And you're at an impasse. And they want you guys as agents to move in and take care of it when really, who needs to take care of that kind of a disagreement? Is everyone left?
We're here.
Yeah, who needs to take care of that kind of a disagreement?
the landlord or the or take it to the courts, but it's their
It's an
responsibility.
attorney. They're going to have to take it to an attorney if they can't come to agreement. They just need to talk with each other. And this is the part where you tell the tenant, look, this is the person you're going to have to start talking with. So let's go ahead and you go ahead, but help me out. Say, look, I can give you some direction, but I'm not the agent anymore. And my license doesn't allow me to negotiate for you beyond the lease. So that's the inability to deliver. Early termination within 7 days. I think we talked about that one. Paragraph early. Yeah. Same type of thing. If the condition exists, what we talked about and what they have to walk through. And it does give 15 days for the tenant to give notice to terminate. If they say it's unjustified, it's all back to they have to agree that the landlord's messed up, early termination. And then I think it's by the time the landlords and tenants get to this point, if they're not playing nice, your only advice is to get an attorney. Okay. Um, Material breach. This is where you're not letting me have this house the way you said you would in the lease. We're in a material breach. For the landlord, it may be you're breeding goats in the backyard, and that's a material breach. You can't do that. So now they're in material breach, and either one of them can terminate. But there is a 30-day notice required, and then there's also a required 21-day right to cure. Give me 21 days, I'll get the goats out of the backyard. Give me 21 days, and I'll fix that broken window on the top floor, whatever that is. And so they do have to give them 21 days to cure it. And if they find out that they are leaving, it's very interesting that even if they terminate and they're allowed to terminate, there's still a right to pursue damages remains with the seller. So if the seller or the homeowner, the landlord comes in and finds problems with the house after they've left, they can still sue them for damages to fix things. Okay. Transfer a tenant. Someone mentioned before if service members are covered by this. They are covered by it. A question that comes up is they want to do a lease and they want to waive this. Can they waive it? No one wants to answer and be wrong, right? Yeah, they can waive it. I looked this one up. This is under the SCRA, which is this code here of the House. And this is the code that we're talking about, the Servicemen Civil Protection Act, or whatever the name of it is. And they can waive. It doesn't prevent them from waiving in writing. So they can waive this. And the same is true for the other transfer. If it's non-military, if they are being transferred for their job more than 50 miles, or the spouse is being transferred for more than 50 miles, they also can get out of this. And let me show you what 50 miles means. Can y'all see that map there? That's 50 miles outside of our office. So generally, if they're going to Rehoboth Beach or Bethany or Anne Arundel or down to Doswell or Richmond, then they can get out of it. If it's just like they're living here at Leesburg and now they're being transferred to Fredericksburg, that's not far enough. They still have to. They just got to start commuting to Fredericksburg. Okay. All right. All right. That's all I have. Anything else? What other kind of great things do y'all have out there? Nothing else?
I have a question.
Okay.
So, can you just talk about the rental market? Because I have two listings that are coming on. One's already on. And I'm wondering if there's sort of like a shift in that arena as
Good
well.
question. Yeah. Let me take a look at that one real quick.
Thanks.
I'll share my screen here. So let's just say Fairfax County. And we got actives. This is leases, listings. We got 657. Okay.
If
Now,
you
I
want,
will
you can
tell
zoom
you
in.
this, the problem I have with the signed lease date um, is that this doesn't, 706. Wow, that's pretty tight. That's
What,
very tight.
what do you mean by tight?
It's less than a month's supply.
Oh, okay.
Now, you take that to, let's say, $4,000 and higher. There's 165 that rented, 172. Was that 165? Is that what that number was?
I didn't see it.
Okay, active 172. Yeah. So about a month supply for over 4,000.
Okay.
So it's still a tight market. It may be having more days on the market as people are trying to float around to get from one to the other, but those are still very tight markets,
Okay.
which I haven't done a let's look at Fairfax again for sales. So right now we got 1,652 properties on the market. These are sales. Divided by 1346. See, we're still at a 1.2 month supply. I know it doesn't feel like it, but it's still a seller's market out there. Yeah. Anybody
That's
got
good.
listings? How long they've been on the market now?
I have two listings that are coming on. It's just taking forever with the renovation. So this is
Yeah.
comforting news.
Yeah. If you hit that price, it's good. So
Mhm.
these are all the ones that are under contract right now, this report. Let's see what kind of days on market they're hanging out there. That's what I said in my latest video. I was like, we're not getting a lot more listings on market. It's just that they're just sitting there longer, which is not a whole lot longer. Now, these are the ones that just went under contract. They're hanging out there on average 19 days,
Mm.
and the median is 10. We're used to that 6 and 7 days. Now, let's take a look at the availables. And they've been on the market 1,652. 1,652 properties on the market. The ones that under contract last 30 days are getting off on average in 19 days and median 10 days. And the actives, once this report comes up, I will submit this is going to really be kind of eye-popping. Yeah, look at that. Average 45, median 23. Still a hot market, but to have an average of over a month and a half, that's telling you something. So, I mean, look at this one, 969 days. What price range is that? 10 million. Okay. Let's get to some cheaper ones here. Our median is, McLean and all is like 1.2 or something. So you're seeing a lot more double digits here. 1.1, not too bad. Here's one for almost 6 months. 107. Most of them under the two-digit time on market, 135 in a price range of 1 million. And then we get down to the under 600. Yeah, most of them, yeah, look at all those signal digits. They're still just barely on the market. So that's the talk to your folks is just tell them, look, we're still in a seller's market. For Fairfax County, we're at 1.22 months supply. Like Springfield, you're just used to a 0.75. And so you think 1.25 is slow. But as I will still continue to say, If you're not getting an offer in that first 7 to 10 days, you need to adjust your price. But there's still buyers out there. And now we know with the rentals, it's still tight there. It's 1 month. Overall, it's less than a month, like 0.7 or 0.9, 0.8, something like that.
Hey, Anthony, but does that mean does the availability date factor into it? Because in rentals, it's usually like a 2 month lead time, right? Um,
Mhm.
so my rental went back on the market. It got a contract right away, like day 3 on the market. But then
Mhm.
that was this, State Department person. They got out via that SCRA clause.
Mhm.
So now it's on the market. I'm finding showings really slow, but it's available in like a month,
Right.
2 months.
Yeah, and that's a good point. When you see that's a really good point, Chris. What's happened is we're used to 10, 15, and 20 showings. Now, Connie Chung just had a Gainesville home, about 1 million. And Sherry was on that open house. They were inundated with visitors. Um, and then you go to Fort Hunt, which is much closer in, and they're like just dying on the vine right now. They're just sitting there. The house that my buyers bought in Fort Hunt had just dropped their price over almost 10%. And
Wow.
then we came in after 20 some days and bought it. So, so what do we have here? We've got a 1.22 month supply with low traffic. Okay. It's still eating it up. It just means that we're finally equaling out on the number of buyers with the number of sellers that are selling. I
Mhm.
mean, we're seeing this news article out there right now nationwide saying there's 500,000 more sellers than there are buyers. I'm like, great, it's about time. We needed it. But as we see here, give it 6 weeks and at the same pace, they'll all be sold. Now, we know they're not going to be sold without adjusting their price. That is what we're seeing.
Okay.
Um, Someone did a search recently on June 1st. 300 expireds came up on June 1st. That's pretty substantial.
Yeah.
So again, there's the hot market and the not market, and the hot market is making this absorption rate low. But if you take those properties probably over 50 days, I bet you that's not a 1.2 month supply. Let me show you how you do that. You take your criteria and you come all the way down here to days on market.
We can't see your screen.
Oh, sorry about that.
It's okay.
You just don't want to watch my face on this? Come on, y'all. All right. So you go down to cumulative days on market. This is a field you have to add, by the way. You're not going to find it up here. So you put cumulative days on market. Let's say 100 days. It's been on the market. So 221. So take out, wait, let's go to actives. Active, great. So active total is 1,652. Let's say for the ones that have been on the market for over 30 days, 795. So with the ones in the cumulative days on market for 795 that's active, I take off the active 795. Remember that number for me, please. 279. 795 divided by 279. Those properties are in a 2.8 month supply. They don't get it right. The properties that went under contract in the last 30 days that have been on the market over 30 days versus the ones on the market, they're almost a 3 month supply. But that's a substantial number of the houses. Let's take a look at that. 795 of 1,642. Isn't that what that was? 795 divided by 1,692. That's 46% of the market is at 2.8%. And 54% or 100% is at 1.22. This ought to be good. Of the ones that sold for 10, there were 452 that are active. 653 It's a 0.3 month supply. So when you look at the days on market crowd, and let me limit my numbers to the ones that are under contract, that have been on the market less than 10 days, because we saw the average house that's going under contract, the median is 10 days. Let's just look at the ones on the market in 10 days. How many of those that were on the cumulative days on market less than 10 days went under contract in the last 30? It was 653. And you divide that by the actives of the under 7, and you're at it's less than 0. I mean, yeah, it's less than 1 month supply. So you got the 2.8 for over the market of 30 days, and you got 0. Let's see what let's take a look at that real quick. Get an actual number on it. They've been on the market less than 10 days, 452. And on the market less than 10 days that went under contract, 653. So those properties that were on the market less than 30 days compared to the ones that are on the market now less than that subgroup is in a 0.69 month supply. The whole market, 1.22. The ones under 10 days, which is the median time on market for the under contracts, 0.69. The ones on the market over 30 days, 2.8. Do you see that's the Swiss cheese. I got to make something up on that. Thank y'all. I really appreciate this. I got to put together. That's a new chart. Y'all know that, right? So.
Yes, we would appreciate it if you share it.
Y'all see how this comes out. You're seeing the madhouse of Anthony. It's like, oh, that's a great chart. I'm going to figure that one out.
Thanks.
Yeah. But that's really good information. So if you're not hitting it at 10 days, price change. And you got to make it substantial enough to where people are going to jump. That's a good one. Thanks for bringing that up, Chris. I appreciate that.
You got it.
Anything else? Anything else happening? I mean, to me, that's the price of admission right there. That's 3 markets. Whole market, big market on the market too long, small market on the market too a short period of time. So that's pretty cool. Anything else? All right. Well, you folks online, you'll know I'm out of town next week. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. So all calls and stuff like that goes to Sheila. And I have this cool little text message that if you text me, I send it back to you. Hey, Sheila's in control and David. So, but I'm still signing stuff. That doesn't take too long. So send me your paperwork to sign. I just sit in my car and sign that stuff.
No, you can't do that. You're not allowed to take over.
Well, I'm fishing. I'm waiting for the robber.
Well, you
Well,
gotta be
enjoy.
fishing for the agents.
Yeah, that one would cause way too much confusion.
I know. Have fun. Have fun. Have fun. You
Yeah, thank you very
deserve it.
much. All right, is
Enjoy.
that it?
Thank
Yep.
you.
All right, folks. Thanks so much.
Okay.